Erev Tov, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. We ask that everybody move forward a little bit. People can fill these rows. That would be great. Erev Tov. My name is Dorit Friedman, and I'm the VP of Partnerships at Nefesh B'Nefesh. It is an honor to host this year's Yom Hazikaron ceremony in cooperation with our dear friends, Keren Kayemet L'Israel. In a few moments, we will all stand for the Siren, commemorating Israel's beloved heroes, sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters, whose lives were tragically cut short during their IDF service and through acts of terror. Just last week, we marked Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura to memorialize and honor all those who paid the ultimate price for not having a Jewish state to call their own. Tonight, as we usher in Yom Hazikaron Lechalalei Marachot Yisrael v'Polot HaIva, we remember, mourn, and honor all those who paid the ultimate price so that we can have a Jewish state of our own. Following the Siren, Naftali Abramson will recite Yizkor and the Kel Maleh Tfilah. Kindly mute your phones at this time. In a moment, the siren will sound, and we ask everybody to stand.
אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים. המצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים טהורים וגיבורים, כזוהר הרקיע מאירים ומזהירים, לנשמות חללי מערכות ישראל שנפלו במלחמות ישראל, בפעולות הגנה, תגמול וביטחון, ובעת מילוי תפקידם ובעת שירותם, ושחרפו נפשם למות על קדושת השם, ובעזרת אלוהי מערכות ישראל הביאו לתקומת האומה והמדינה ולגאולת הארץ ועיר האלוהים. בעבור שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם, לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבותם, ותעמוד לכל ישראל זכותם, ויעמדו לגורלם לקץ הימים. ונאמר אמן. יזכור עם ישראל את בניו ובנותיו הנאמנים והאמיצים, חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל וכל לוחמי המחתרות וחטיבות הלוחמים במערכות העם, ואנשי קהילות המודיעין, הביטחון, המשטרה ושירות בתי הסוהר, אשר חירפו נפשם במלחמה על תקומת ישראל, וכל מי שנרצחו בארץ ומחוצה לה בידי מרצחים מארגוני הטרור. יזכור ישראל ויתברך בזרעו, ויאבל על זיו העלומים, וחמדת הגבורה וקדושת הרצון ומסירות הנפש של הנספים במערכה הכבדה.
I would like to welcome tonight's speakers, co-founder and executive director of Nefesh B'Nefesh, Rabbi Fass, Danny Singer, brother of Alex, Zichrono Livracha, Mary and Rabbi Fuld, parents of Ari, Zichrono Livracha. Nefesh B'Nefesh was founded during the Second Intifada, at the peak of a particularly challenging time for the Jewish state. It seemed that every day there was a horrific incident tearing up the nation and our land. One of these victims at that time was Naftali Landskron, Zichrono Livracha, a young 13-year-old relative of Rabbi Fass. This personal tragedy spurred him, together with Tony Gelbart, to create Nefesh B'Nefesh. Today, nearly 75,000 Olim have made Aliyah from North America, and each Oleh and Olah serves as a tribute to the continuity of life and the rebuilding of our Jewish nation. As we stand here tonight on the eve of Israel's 74th Independence Day, we remember all those who enabled us to flourish and grow here, who through their deaths willed us life. Yom Hazikaron ensures that we do not forget where we came from and where we are headed, while symbolizing for us the ongoing journey of our nation, culminating in our miraculous return to our homeland. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו. I am honored to call upon Rabbi Fass, Executive Director and Co-founder of Nefesh B'Nefesh, to begin this evening's Tekes.
ונקדשתי בתוך בני ישראל, אני השם מקדישכם, המוציא אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוקים, אני השם. Two psukim from Parshat Emor that we will be reading Be'ezrat Hashem this Shabbat. The Sifra explains the juxtaposition between these two psukim as being the devastating price for our nation's fulfillment of its destiny and its return home. The Sifra suggests that a hamotzi etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim veheveti ala aretz requires a painful v'nekdashti betoch b'nei Yisrael. In his words, shetimsaru atzmechem lekadesh et shmi. Yom Hazikaron plays an incredibly significant role in Israel's consciousness. In remembering our fallen, either in their IDF service or killed by terrorism, the country mourns the very price we have had to pay to build our state and to live in our land. How discerning and prophetic were the Sifra's words of the painful necessity of shetimseru atzmechem lekadesh et shmi. For we know too well that our precious homeland, that which for centuries we have prayed and yearned and dreamed, was indeed created through decades of countless tears and innumerable sacrifices. But for anyone who has lost a loved one in their IDF service or through acts of terror, are painfully conscious and very cognizant that Yom Hazikaron is not the one day relegated for their grief and pain. No, not at all. Because not a day goes by without feeling the loss, without dealing with the waves of unexpected emotions from shock or anger to disbelief, guilt, and profound sadness. No, not a day goes by without the slightest of triggers, making the pain so overwhelming and so unbearable that makes the basic acts of living, of sleeping, of eating, thinking a Herculean feat. No, Yom HaZikaron is not the one day reserved for our pain. It's not the single day for being emotive over our loss. It is a Yom HaZikaron. In Judaism, memory, zichronot, zikaron, is a pivotal component of our observance. Memory in Yahadut is not nostalgia. Memory, its role and charge is to be transformative. Transformative of who we are, of what we value, and how we act. The act of transforming loss for an individual is not an easy task. When the suicide bomber detonated the explosives that killed Naftali, it sent shrapnels ripping through the mental psyche of a lot of my family members, sending some into an irretrievable abyss. For others, though, they took their pain and their darkness and morphed it and transformed it into light and life. Not an easy task for individuals. But for a collective, it is our mandate to take our shared communal pain and memories, a Yom HaZikaron, and have them be transformative of nature. Rahmana, every family, every citizen in Israel has a direct connection to someone who has been killed. Israel as a collective must be that which remembers, and through that memory transforms itself, commands itself to be worthy of the price paid, to charge itself to continue building our nation, promoting life, embracing life, living life with meaning, and continuing to marvel in the majesty of the miracle of the modern state of Israel, not despite our losses, but because of our loss. Yeshayahu Hanavi writes, "V'chein כה אמר Hashem Elokim, הנני יישא בציון אבן, אבן בכל פינת יקרת מוסד מוסד. Behold, I will found a Zion, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a stone that will be a sure foundation." Yom Hazikaron is a day that we collectively recognize our loss of our prized stones and precious gems, and appreciate that they became the very cornerstone of our foundation, that they became the galvanizing force, the transformative force in our lives and within our nation, and that their past became our very future. יהי רצון מפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, שיתבטל מלחמות ושפיכות עמים מן העולם, ותמשיך שלום גדול ונפלא בעולם. לא יישא גוי הגוי חרב ולא ימדו עוד מלחמה. רק יתגבר מידת החסד על מידת הדין, ותעורר ברחמך העליון עלינו, ומשם יהיו נמשכים עלינו צדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. ויתרבה השלום בעולם, and we should know no further sorrow.
Alex Singer was born in White Plains, New York. He was the second son of 4 boys, brother to Saul, Daniel, and Benji. Lieutenant Singer was killed in action during an ambush in Lebanon while rushing forward under fire with the unit's medic in order to try and save the life of their commanding officer. It was on Alex's 25th birthday. Alex was a Chayal Boded, a lone soldier, who had not only volunteered to serve in an IDF combat unit after graduating summa cum laude from Cornell University, but he also continued to volunteer as an infantry officer. Alex died as he lived, leading by personal example. He wrote a letter to his brother Saul in 1983 on the eve of his Aliyah, in which he said, "The purpose of my Aliyah will be a combination of wanting a greater chance to make my Judaism one of joy rather than one of burdens, of wanting to be part of Israel's development, both as a state and as a beacon, and of feeling that it is the duty of the individual Jew to help the Jewish people." Zionism gave meaning to Alex's life, and he gave a meaning to Zionism through his beautiful life and ultimately with his life. Alex lived life with no regrets and maximized his time to the fullest. We welcome Danny Singer to share more about his older brother, paratrooper Alex Singer, Zichrono Livracha.
I met Alex 30 years ago. I was his counselor in the Brandeis Bardin program in California, and he was the participant who would sit at the back, always drawing, and the one with whom I probably had the most interesting conversations.
In 1973, the family went to Israel, intending to stay for only 1 year, but remaining for 4. In 1977, the whole family returned to the Washington, D.C. area. Alex made Aliyah on the last day of 1984 and was drafted into the Israeli army.
Dear Mom and Dad, just got off the phone with you just to show you that talking doesn't make me less likely to write. It's Monday now. I'll be a soldier in 7 hours. I'm not worried, so you shouldn't. Lebanese border, dear Catherine. I'm not stationed in Lebanon, but at times we have to go in. You must never forget that my being where I am is not a result of my worldview, but of the fact that if we weren't here, Israel would live in terror.
Today I felt such fear. If the war comes, when the war comes, I will have to lead men to die. But those men were not men a short time ago. Some don't even shave yet. And I will have to have the calm power to yell to them or to whisper, Kadima.
These were not easy situations for him, not physically, not personnel, not all these things that he felt that it was important to do, it was the right thing to do, he was in the right place.
He had very strong views about how to do that, about what kind of values you wanted to give the soldiers.
This country is my home emotionally, religiously, and in any other way. I want to make this place better. Last letter, unfinished. Dear Harold, the day after tomorrow I'll be 25. This is a good age, prime of life. It is once again a time of decision for me. I've decided I would like to be a company commander. So I don't feel like I'm aging. The fact that I'll finish my next position at age 26 or 27 is not worrisome. I'm pleased that
I think he cared very much to be an example to his soldiers of somebody who could be observant and be part of the world and really care about everybody.
I went to the Army. Part of the project is to give each team of soldiers a name. A week after my soldiers went into the Army, they got their name, which is Tzevet Alex. When they see a soldier who made Aliyah from America, chose to do the Army and to be an officer, it was a very meaningful part of my Army service.
I was on a student trip to Israel. The trip leader handed out copies of Alex's book. It was the inspiration of Alex's story and what it meant to him to be a young American Israeli Jew. And I ultimately decided to come back to Israel and join the Army myself.
I think one of the things that we think about is how many young people were affected by his life. So for us, that makes a very big difference.
Dear Alex, you have left us so much of yourself, so many drawings, so many writings that make us smile and think about life. We can hear your laughter, feel your joy, and we are powered by your message to do. Do as you believe and people will follow you. Do what is right because only then will you have the power to affect the world. We and Saul, Daniel, and Benji, together now in Israel, are all trying to make you proud of how we build our lives. Love, Mom and Dad.
"35 years ago, I sat Shiva for Alex, together with my brothers and my parents. I don't remember much from the Shiva. It was a blur, tens and maybe hundreds of people in and out the whole week. I have very snippets of memories. One of the memories I have is of two people walked into the Shiva. I didn't know who they were. They came up to us and introduced themselves. One was the father, and the other was the sibling of Marcus Hochstein. Marcus Hochstein was born in Washington, D.C. in 1964, 2 years after Alex, 1 year before me. Marcus made Aliyah at age 18 in 1983, the same year I made Aliyah, and a couple years before Alex made Aliyah. Marcus became a Chayal Boded at Kibbutz Beit Hashita and had adoptive parents there. Much like Alex and myself were Chayalim Bodedim at Kibbutz Ein Tzurim. We had adoptive parents, Michal and Yuda Chen. Marcus joined the Tzanchanim like the other battalion, not the same as Alex and mine, but nevertheless Tzanchanim. And on March 30th, 1985, Marcus was killed in Lebanon, together with another soldier. When I looked at them, with all the circumstances being so much like us, it was eerie. I had never met Marcus. I don't think Alex did. But I had heard of Marcus, because at the time, it wasn't like today when there's a kind of history, unfortunately, of Olim who have fallen, including Alex and Michael Levine and many others. At the time, it was very rare, and Marcus's name was known. And all I could think of when I saw them was one thought, and it was kind of connected to what Rabbi Fass said. I was in the midst of pain and grief and loss, like a knife ripping through me. And probably the same is true with my brothers and parents. And all I could think of was looking at them, at their loss, which seemed to me at the time a long, long time ago. And I wanted to ask them, and I don't even know if I did, but I know that I distinctly remember the thought, what happens with the passage of time to this feeling that I have now? And I'm here to share with you a little bit, after 35 years, what a passage of time does. So on the one hand, 35 years is it's a long time, and they say time heals, but it doesn't. The pain just changes its nature. It moves inside, it comes and goes. As Rabbi Fass said, we don't need the Yom Hazikaron to think about Alex. But on the other hand, life continues, and we have accomplishments and joy and happiness, and the three of us brothers married and each have children. Alex has 11 grandchildren, all living here in Israel, and even three he has 11 nieces and nephews, and three great nieces and nephews. And so, and professionally, myself and my brothers, and my parents rode and did things and had lots of fulfillment all these 35 years. But two things kind of always were alongside us. One was that feeling of we'd like to share it with Alex and he's not there. The other is the thought, which only comes up once in a while, I have to be honest, is you stop and think what Alex would have done with his life if he had lived. He's about to turn, Alex would have turned 60 this upcoming birthday, and is the day of his death, which happens to be the day before Ari Fuld's death, killing. And we stop and think of what he would have done if he did all these things in 25 years. But it's a quick thought and we move on. But the more important thing that gives me strength, and I think my entire family, and I think you saw little bits of that. This is the first Yom Hazikaron without my parents. My mother died just a few months ago. My father 2 years before. But the question that we ask is, Alex, as you saw, and like I think everybody in this room almost, came to Israel out of choice. And so the passage of time asks us the question, was this sacrifice worth it? You know, worth it to us, you know, personally, and to Alex. And the resounding answer is yes. Look at what's happened to Israel in 35 years. Look at the fantastic, unbelievable country we have here. I mean, in every sphere that we talk about, if it's the economy and the fact that we're a vibrant democracy. Yes, we've had 4 elections now, but that's just a sign of being a vibrant democracy and the only one in the Middle East and one of the most vibrant ones in the world. And technology, I don't have to say what we've done because my brother wrote a book about it. The Startup Nation. And we can go on, and we've had, you know, 1 million immigrants from the former Soviet Union and Ethiopia, and we make Jewish babies here like no other place in the world, and all over. And we're growing, you know, just on and on and on. And all these things help us, like I said, make that answer. But I think Alex said, and as we a lot of times find, we don't need to speak for Alex because he said it himself. Because you can look at all those things, and obviously there are some things that are not going so well in the country. But as Alex said it, There are many things about this country which I truly hate. Others hate them enough to be driven to leave. I hate the economic idiocy. I hate the way the PLO is allowed to determine the Israeli education of Arab children. This may surprise you, but it's true. I hate the fact that members of parliament are exempt from all the disgusting taxes they impose on the rest of us. I hate the way talent is wasted. There's a long list. But because I see this place as my home, I don't pile the cons on one side of the scale and the pros on the other and come to a conclusion about whether it was worth staying here. Home is home, and it will take more than irritations to force me to leave. I want to make this a better place. So I leave it with this whole, to ourselves and to us all, to find a way, each of us, to continue to make Israel a better place.
מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל העומדים על משמר ארצנו והרי אלוהינו מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים ומן הים הגדול עד לבוא הערבה ביבשה באוויר ובים הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל ייתן השם את אויבינו הקמים עלינו ניגפים לפניהם הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל מי שברך אבותינו אברהם יצחק ויעקב הוא יברך את חיילי צבא הגנה לישראל
Ari was born in New York to Rabbi Yonah and Mary Fuld. He moved to Israel on his own in 1981, where he studied at Yeshivat HaKotel in the Old City of Jerusalem, and in 1992 enlisted in the IDF's Golani Brigade. After being discharged from the IDF, Ari studied at Bar Ilan University. During his studies, Ari married Miriam Losher, and soon after moving from Jerusalem to Efrat, they raised their 4 children, Tamar, Naomi, Yakir, and Natan. Ari joined an elite paratrooper unit in Miluim and served as a key member of Efrat's counter-terrorist unit. Never one to waste time, Ari received smicha, rabbinic ordination, and he taught in numerous gap-year yeshivas. He was also a teacher and mentor in Torah Doja Karate School, and many people remember him with personal and virtual midnight tours of the Old City of Jerusalem, Hebron, and other locations around Israel. Ari was committed to the truth, to the Torah, to the IDF, to the state of Israel, and to the Jewish people. He would never shy away from confrontation to defend those truths when they came under attack. On September 16, 2018, while standing in the parking lot at the Gush Etzion Junction, he was fatally stabbed by a terrorist. And despite that, he managed to pull out his gun, chase his attacker down, and directly save the lives of numerous people nearby. We are honored to have Ari's mother, Mary, here with us this evening. Thank you very much.
As I look at this flame, and as we light the candle, the Yizkor candle tonight, it's just an overcoming. I'm overcome with the realization that this is the personification of Ari. Everyone who knew him knew he had a fire burning within him. It was this fire that moved him to dedicate his life to protecting our people, our Torah, our land. It can all be summed up very easily in the name of his Facebook blog, Shield of Israel. And on September 16th, 2018, Zayin B'Tishrei, Tafshin Ayin Tet, after being fatally wounded by being savagely stabbed in the back, it was this same fire that propelled him to pursue the terrorist, jump over a wall, save Hila, the proprietress of the nearby falafel store, who was the terrorist's next victim, who, by the way, since then has become a part of the inner circle of our family. At the Shiva, the doctor who tried to save Ari's life said to us he just cannot explain how he possibly, physically could have accomplished this. And then he said maybe it was the remaining blood in his circulation system. At that point, my son Donnie interjected and said, with all due respect, it wasn't his blood, it was his neshama. And I would like to add, it was that fire in his neshama. The police department awarded Ari with the most prestigious Medal of Honor given to a citizen, the Itur HaMofet LeEzrach. Hila, the woman he saved, hung a huge poster of Ari on her store that said, Ari Fuld, my hero. But I would like to say that Ari's heroism was evident not only on that day, but in the 45 short years that he was given. In his selfless devotion to Judaism's highest values. And another form of heroism that I would like to point out is that a person who can recognize his strengths and his abilities and take them and direct them towards a higher goal, toward goals that he set for himself as principles, and to be able to accomplish that using those strengths, that too is a form of heroism, in my opinion. So in the few short moments here that I have with you, I would like to follow the path of Ari's life and try to see what it is that made him a hero. As a baby, Ari was full of energy, napping for very little bit, never slept. This, of course, continued throughout his life. He slept very little. In the middle of the night, he would argue with people on social media, all corners of the world. Anytime there was an anti-Israel statement or someone spewing lies, he could not tolerate the lies. He always said, I have to combat them with the truth. His brother Hillel would say to him, Ari, what are you doing? You're never going to convince them. Why are you up in the middle of the night? And Ari would say, it's not about convincing him. It's about all the other 1,000 people who are going to follow this and hear the truth. He could not tolerate the injustice, and he was propelled to counter it always with the facts. He did so weekly on a television program where he would verbally spar with the head of Shalom Achshav. And sometimes the arguments got heated. But every time at the end of the show, the two of them would go up to the roof, have a friendly drink together, slap each other in the back, and shake hands. Ari was energetic his whole life. I just want to share a story with you about something that he did in high school while he was still in America. Ari had his life's goals set on becoming part of the ice hockey team of TA, Vichy University. He wanted to be on that team in the worst way. And in the end, he didn't make the cut. And for the rest of the year, he went to every single hockey game. He was their major fan. He made posters. He screamed. He egged them on. He rooted for them. And that's how it went. And I found that remarkable. I was so proud of that he was able again to take his energies and focus them to a higher goal. Ari loved sports. He was a regular guy. He loved having a good time. Things changed when he went to Israel for the first time. Not for the first time. We spent a year in Israel together at a Shnat Shabbaton. But then we went back to America, and he came to Israel to learn in Netiv Aryeh. Ari's favorite place was not necessarily the classroom growing up, but we got a call from his Rosh Yeshiva. Your son Ari does not leave the Beit Midrash. He's there day and night. And again, this was a change that he brought upon himself. He fell in love with learning. It carried through with him his whole life, but he made it happen. And in that year, he met his Fashert, Miriam. She should be well. And they married. There were two sides of a coin, two kids skipping down the yellow brick road together, but with the same ideals and with the same principles. And they raised a beautiful family. Ari today has a grandchild whose name is Ari Oz. They live across the street from us. And Tamar and Naomi and Yakir and Natan all carry his legacy proudly. The playful and fun side of Ari never left him. He was the first one in Efrat to jump on a sled when it snowed. He was the first one to sled down the hill. He was the first one to play with his children's toys when his children got new toys. He was the uncle who would roll around on the floor with his nephews and nieces. He had that fun side of him, and he kept it always. Ari was tall and muscular, and one of the major quests in his life was to become an expert in Torah Dojo. He began Torah Dojo when he was a child, 12 years old, but he kept at it diligently, working out, exercising all the time. We came to a year in Israel. He continued his studies in Torah Dojo. And finally, he moved all the way up to a 4th degree black belt. At the time of his death, there were 14 people in the world who reached that degree. But his greatness in Torah Dojo was not only that he taught people how to fight, but as one of his students wrote to us, Ari was more than my karate teacher. Of course, he taught me how to fight, but he also taught me how not to fight. I had a letter, if I could only have the time to read some of them to you today. I don't have the time. I'll try to paraphrase it. One young man wrote, Ari Fuld was my karate teacher, but I hate saying that because it diminishes so much what he was to me. Ari would take sessions, take time out in his Torah dojo to teach the boys, especially around Yomim Noraim, how to meditate. Boys and girls, by the way, I should say. He taught them how to meditate, but he always directed things under the umbrella of Judaism. This young man wrote, I went to yeshiva my whole life. I studied in yeshiva day school. I went to high school. I went to college. But Ari Fuld is the one who taught me how to daven. He taught me how to pray. Ari would take children, interact with them, reach them. There was a story of one father who came to one of the Torah Dojo sessions and said, Ari, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And Ari said, what are you sorry about? He said, well, I forgot to give my son the Ritalin. And Ari said, Ritalin? Are you kidding me? Watch. And he put this young man through a series of katas, perfect precision movements. And the father looked with his mouth open, and Ari said, don't ever give him Ritalin when he comes to me. So Ari had this ability to reach young ones, children, older ones. The Lebanon War, which he was in, the Second Lebanon War, was truly a pivotal moment in his life. He was miraculously saved, and he went on speaking tours all over the world to relay this story. He was sitting under a tree deep in Lebanon when a fellow soldier was injured, and his commanding officer told them to go in and extract the injured soldiers. He was sitting under a tree with his huge 50-pound knapsack, and as soon as he got up, a shell hit exactly on that spot. He did get shrapnel, but he was protected by his vest. But he took that piece of shrapnel with him all over the world when he spoke. And I think that the 12 years that were given to him afterwards, he knew that he had to make them count. And he told me, Ima, now I'm going to do what's important. And he took a third of every single day for the next 2 years, and he spent it learning in yeshiva. It was difficult. He had a family, but he was propelled by that same inner fire to do this. His army service, he volunteered. He was a Chayal Boded when he was here. We weren't here yet. We hadn't come on Aliyah. And he, by the way, lived with our good friends, the Rodders, who were here today for that year, part of the time. And of course, we're very grateful to them for that. After in the army, they called him Rambo because of the enthusiasm and because of his push and drive to do everything. That same fire evident all the time. At the end of his army service, Chayalim Bodedim are not allowed to go into Miluim. That's the law. And Ari wouldn't have it. And he wrote to the army, and he called the army, and every time he got the same answer, no, 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 you're not eligible, you're not eligible. And finally, he went to Rechavam Zevi, known as Gandhi, Zichrono Livracha, and he said, you got to help me. I want to go into Miluim. And finally, he was accepted into Miluim, and he was switched from Golani into Sanchanim, and he continued to go to Miluim his entire life. The last Miluim he went to, he said, Ma, I need to make the pickup ride is going to be in Yerushalayim. Will you drive me to my pickup? So I said, sure. And on the ride there, I said to him, Ari, you're 45 years old. When are you going to stop? The mother speaking, you know. When are you going to stop this Miluim? And he said to me, Ma, when I breathe the last breath in my body. And the soldiers and his commanding officers in that Miluim have made countless visits to us, have made countless countless sessions to commemorate him. And every year they invite us to the new recruits in his unit. And they have a big poster of Ari. And they speak about Ari, and they use it as inspiration for the new recruits. That was the same fire that continued him all along. I always used to say Ari created a tsunami in this world. Let me explain to you what I mean. Countless people come to us up till this day telling us the following sentence: I met Ari, and Ari changed my life. I came to Israel because of Ari. Countless stories. Sitting in the Shiva, we got a call from the Ukraine. A young couple in the Ukraine named their baby Ari. Just last week, we were up north with a family. A young man, a young couple comes over to us and says, oh, here, I recognize Hillel, but Hillel, I want to tell you, this baby that I'm holding is named Ari. This week, we got a note from somebody, I named my child Ariella. It goes on and on. In the Shiva, somebody came to us. They stayed online for hours outside our door, Erev Yom Kippur. This couple came to us and said, I never met Ari, but I used to listen to his podcasts. We're here because of him. We came on Aliyah because of him. The letters that the students write to us, I'll just share one very short one to show you this gentle side of Ari. He taught in high schools, and in one junior high, he taught students who were going on a hike. And they were going on quite a strenuous hike, and one young man was afraid to cross the riverbank on stones. There was a river, and he was afraid, and the teachers and the students were helping him and trying to get him to go. No, 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 he would not cross. And finally, Ari said to him, listen, I'm going to put my hands down. You walk on my hands. And that's what he did. He walked across on Ari's hands. These are the stories, just a little teeny part of them that we get all the time that I wanted to share with you. There was a young lady in seminary just recently who wrote to us that I'm Chabad family. I was not even going to come to Israel, but I came. My friends encouraged me to come, and I was in the seminary, and I had this wonderful Zionist teacher, and he taught me what Zionism is. How did he do that? Ari purposely taught in yeshivas that perhaps did not focus on Zionism, but he wanted that side. He wanted the students to feel it. So I had the privilege of going with him to Har Herzl one year, where he took his students every single year. Because Yehoshua Friedberg, Alav HaShalom, Hashem Yikom Damo, was a friend of his when he was in the army, who was kidnapped and murdered by terrorists. And Ari took it upon himself every single year of his life to talk to the students about Yehoshua. And he would bring them to Har Herzl and speak, and I heard him speak. More than that, Ari's other great love was Tzahal. And Ari worked tirelessly to make sure that Tzahal, that the boys in Tzahal would have some kind of relief, and he collected money to build a truck in which Yehoshua's picture was there. And with this truck, he used to visit bases and bring pizza or hamburgers or ice cream or pancakes to these soldiers. Today, such a truck exists with both their pictures on it, and it continues to visit bases and soldiers. So, Ari was a hero on that day, but it was not a moment. It was a lifetime of diligent and hard work. It was a lifetime of taking his fire, harnessing it, focusing it, setting goals, and directing his fire towards those goals. You know, I was asked a very troubling question a while ago. Someone asked me, do you regret coming? I heard Ari's voice jump out of me. He would say, are you kidding? He would say that. I would say, you know what? We're not in charge. We think we're in charge. We're not in charge. Our goal, our job, find our way, set our goals, set the highest goals we can, work towards them. That's the best we can do. And you, dear brothers and sisters, who have joined together on the greatest enterprise that the Jewish people has embarked on since the building of the second Beit HaMikdash. I hope, in Rabbi Fass's words, to take this day, to use it to imbue you, not only to remember Ari, but to imbue you with the same fire, the same zeal, the same love that Ari had, so that you can ensure that this light, through your children and through all future generations, will continue for eternity. Yehi Zichram Baruch.
Shalom kulam chaverim, kan Ari Fuld. Hey everyone, Ari Fuld. I am on the Gaza. I'm on the border of Gaza. Hey everyone, Ari Fuld here again with you in the city of Hebron. David's Welcome back everyone, Ari Fuld here from the old city of Jerusalem. You can see that I'm looking over the Temple Mount now. Shalom kulam, Ari Fuld כאן. אני רוצה לדבר על שני נושאים. Hey כולם, מה העניינים? Hey everyone, welcome. שלום לכולם, ארי פולד כאן מנתיב האבות ביישוב אלעזר.
את העולם ועם הזמן נעלמים. טיפסתי על פסגות הרים בדרך, גם שאלתי בעצת החכמים. לא נתתי לעיניי להסתנוור מהמראות, והבנתי שיותר מדי זה לפעמים פחות. לקחתי לי מתוך השקט שיר לנשמה. אין עוד מלבדו, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. הקדוש ברוך הוא מלך ואני עבדו. במלחמות אל מול היצר כמו מדבר צמא למימה, אדם נכנע ושוב הנפש מבקשת לה מסתור מתחת לכנפי השכינה. גם אני עמדתי בפתח כמו כולם לבקש סליחה ממלך העולם, ולקחתי לי מתוך השקט שיר לנשמה. אין עוד מלבדו, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. הקדוש ברוך הוא מלך ואני עבדו. אין עוד מלבדו, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. הקדוש ברוך הוא מלך.
On Zion Tishrei, September 16th, 2018, it was a Sunday, 2 days before Yom Kippur, and Ari went food shopping. In the supermarket parking lot, a 16-year-old Arab terrorist jumped out from between two cars and stabbed Ari in the back. Despite his injury, Ari ran after the terrorist to make sure he would not hurt anyone else. When Ari saw that the terrorist was being held down and no longer able to harm others, only then did Ari allow himself to sit down. The injury was fatal. The knife had sliced through his lung and his main artery. Ari lost too much blood and died on the way to the hospital. On Ari's tombstone it says, he fought for the truth until his last breath.
And I want to pray also for the people in Israel to be safe, and I want to ask Kadosh Baruch Hu, I want to ask God to please give us the strength and the courage to make the right decisions and to be able to eradicate those who want to destroy us. And remember one thing, we're not living in fear. We are not living in fear. Those days are over, around 80 years ago.
His life is precious. And as Jews, we have a responsibility to fill our lives up and live life the way it's time to tell the truth. It's time for truth to prevail.
So I'm a very proud Israeli, Jewish person. Very proud. And those creeps, terrorists, will not instill in me fear.
חייבים להפסיק להתנצל, חייבים להפסיק להסס ולגמגם. כל גמגום, כל היסוס גורם לעוד דמים שישפכו. You have to have these heroes in mind. You have to understand that Eretz Yisrael is not something to be played with, or bargained with, or fooled around with, or mizazel. You can't do it. Never take Israel for granted. Ever. Ever. Ever.
זיכרון המרגלים שהיו פה, אבל אנחנו מתקנים. לא מתלוננים, אנחנו אוכלים, משבחים, מתיישבים, ממשיכים הלאה.
All right, everyone. Have an awesome day. Shalom to all.
All right, everyone. Take care. God bless from the beautiful rolling hills of Judea, Israel. We're playing baseball here. Signing off from the beautiful, stunning city of Hebron. God bless everyone from the beautiful rolling hills of Judea, Israel.
חבר'ה, זה כל מה שרציתי להגיד היום. מקווה שלכם שבוע מעולה, שבוע טוב לכולם. I'm signing off. This is Ari Fuld from the beautiful, stunning rolling hills of Judea, Israel. Take care, everyone. תודה ולהתראות.
כשאמור משהו ממני, משהו ממני ימות בך, ימות בך כשתמות, משהו ממך בי, משהו ממך בי ימות איתך, ימות איתך, כי כולנו, כן כולנו, כולנו רקמה אנושית אחת חיה, ואם אחד מאיתנו הולך מעימנו, משהו מת בנו ומשהו נשאר איתו. אם נדע איך להרגיע, איך להרגיע את האיבה, אם רק נדע, אם נדע, אם נדע להשקיט את זעמנו, על אף עלבוננו לומר סליחה, ואם רק נדע, כי כולנו, כן כולנו, כולנו רקמה אנושית אחת חיה, ואם אחד מאיתנו הולך מעימנו, משהו מת בנו ומשהו נשאר איתו. כי כולנו, כן כולנו, כולנו רקמה אנושית אחת חיה, ואם אחד מאיתנו הולך מעימנו, משהו מת בנו ומשהו נשאר איתו.
As we conclude our ceremony tonight, I wish each and every one of you a meaningful Yom Hazikaron and a celebratory Yom HaAtzmaut. May we all merit to continue to see our Jewish state grow and prosper, and may our fallen brethren be the last for our nation. Yehi Zichram Baruch. We are forever indebted to them. Please rise for Ani Ma'amin and Hatikva.
אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח. אני מאמין, אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח. אני מאמין, ואף על פי שיתמהמה עם כל זה, אחכה לו, אחכה לו, בכל יום שיבוא, בכל יום שיבוא. ואף על פי שיתמהמה עם כל זה, אחכה לו, אחכה לו, בכל יום שיבוא, בכל יום שיבוא. כל עוד בלבב בנימה, נפש יהודי הומיה, ולפתי מזרח קדימה, עין לציון צופיה. עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו, התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים.
Zikaron.